welcome to edition 2035 of the Enfield Talking newspaper. With me on the reading team for Thursday the 14th of January 2016 are Elizabeth, Katherin and Patricia, with Jason on the controls. And the items we'll be reading are the copyright of our local newspapers, the Enfield Gazette and Advertiser and the Enfield Independent. This week's local stories include traders fear development, a hero risks his life in fire rescue bid, a lifetime devoted to music is recognised with an OBE, and new lime trees are chosen for Broomfield Park. But before we go to the papers, we've got one or two reminders and special announcements. Elizabeth, talk to us about Vocalise.
Vocalise is a magazine that comes out 4 times a year, and it's a nationwide audio description service for people with a visual impairment, and it's providing access to the best in arts. And we thought you might be interested that there are some audio described performances in London. One of them is a Christmas carol, which is on the Thursday, the 21st of January. The Homecoming, the 25th of January. Les Miserables on the 30th of January. Liaison Dangereuse on the 30th of January also. And Guys and Dolls, there's Annie on the 6th of February, The Mother on the 9th of February. And if you're interested in any of those, because, as I say, they are audio described, then I think the best thing to do is to contact Vocalise, and there is an email which is inquiries@vocaleyes, which is all one word, vocaleyes.co.uk. Or there is an address which is 54 Commercial Street, London, E16LT, and the telephone number is 020 7375 1043. Rather a lot, I know. I think you might find it interesting.
That's brilliant. And you can, if you call them up, I think they can send you the catalogue in a number of different formats, can't they? So you can have it in Braille or on a CD or things like that. That's right, yeah. Okay, that's great. Patricia, can you remind us about Sonata?
Yes, Enfield Talking newspaper is now available on Sonata. Sonata is an internet radio service developed by the British Wireless for the Blind Fund, specifically for use by blind and partially sighted people. Sonata devices are available to buy from the British Wireless for the Blind Fund and require a broadband connection. You might qualify for a Sonata device on a free loan. To qualify, you would need to be registered blind or partially sighted, be a UK resident, and get means-tested benefits like pension credits, attendance allowance or a carer's allowance. For more information about this, telephone the British Wireless for the Blind Fund on 01622 747 757. And if you would like to experience a Sonata in action, please get in touch with your listener's representative, Diane de Jersey, on 020 8805 6578.
Listener's representative, Diane, Katherin, tell us about her.
Just to reiterate, and I'm sure you know by now, that you have a listener's representative, Diane de Jersey, who will be happy to help you with any problems or concerns you have about your talking newspaper. You can call Diane on 020 8805 6578.
Thanks. And now here's Elizabeth with the first news item.
Traders are up in arms after learning that they may lose their livelihoods to make way for a new development, and they claim no one has bothered to tell them. Ritz Parade on the corner of Powys Lane and the North Circular Road in Arnos Grove has been identified as a key site, ripe for a revamp as part of an overreaching regeneration blueprint for stretches of the A406 in Enfield. But angry traders along the parade surrounding the former Ritz Cinema now Jehovah's Witness Assembly Hall, say that they have received no official notification that the council is holding a public consultation seeking views on the scheme. They say they haven't been sent letters or told in person that a 6-week public consultation on options for the future of the parade was set to be launched. The site has been earmarked for redevelopment under Enfield Council's North Circular Area Action Plan. People are being asked to give their feedback on the site owner, Notting Hill's Housing, 2 proposed options for a mixture of flats and commercial properties. But the business owners say their tight community will be forced out to make way for luxury flats. Peter Sandermas, who has run Ariana Heating and Plumbing for 37 years, told the Advertiser, "I've been here the longest, but several other businesses have been here for more than 20 years. I'll be very sad to leave, but it is really a strong community." When they widened the road and put in red lines a few years ago, we lost 60% of our custom, and in the end we had to close part of our business. But this will be the end for me. The council has not informed us at all, which seems underhand. Another trader, who asked not to be named, said we could understand losing our businesses to make the road better for everyone in the community, but not so that Notting Hill Housing can build luxury houses and make money. It feels like it's being done behind our backs. The council said any issues regarding notice periods or leases, should the scheme be granted approval, was solely a matter between the developer and the Ritz Parade tenants. It was, said a council spokeswoman, engaging with residents as to what development proposals were being put forward, and had started the process through a ward forum before wider consultation. There are now plans to schedule another public meeting in the next few weeks where the public will again be able to comment and ask questions, and shop owners are invited to this meeting, she added.
A fearless builder told of how he risked his life to try and rescue people from a blazing block of flats. Ray Morioni, 50, had been working on a neighbouring building site when he noticed thick black smoke pouring out of a flat in Old Road, Enfield, on 10 o'clock on last Friday morning. Without any regard for his own safety, he raced over to get inside, but the flames were too strong and kept knocking him back. He said, "I saw smoke coming out of the middle window in the building and knew straight away it was serious. I rushed towards the front door of the flats and opened it, but no matter how hard I tried to force my way in, the ferocity of the flames and the heat kept knocking me back out onto the street. I wasn't scared. I was even on the phone to the emergency services as I tried to make my way in." Mr. Marioni added, "I wasn't afraid. I just wanted to help and didn't even think about the consequences." Firefighters rescued 2 men and also an elderly woman who was able to climb down a ladder to safety. All were treated for smoke inhalation. Mr. Morioni added, "I'm just glad I was there."
A lifetime devoted to music has built to a rousing crescendo for Leslie East. The Enfield resident was awarded an OBE in the New Year Honours. The 66-year-old of Chase Court Gardens will be accompanied by his wife, singer Lilia Zobens, and daughters Andra and Carolina, who also have careers in music, to Buckingham Palace to receive his award. It recognises a lifelong commitment to supporting musicians in their careers. He said, "I've been inundated with messages from people I have known congratulating me on the award." Leslie studied music at King's College London from 1967 to 1975 and began writing reviews and articles while he was a postgraduate student. In 1975, he became the Director of Music at the Guildhall School of Music and Drama in central London when he was just 26 and remained there for 11 years. Within a year of starting the job, he helped the school move into its new home in the Barbican. "That was incredible," he said. "I met Simon Rattle and Leonard Bernstein and composers like Michael Tippett when I was working there. It was a great place to work." He later became publishing director of music company Novello & Co., and then joined the Associated Board of the Royal Schools of Music as managing editor of its publishing arm, where he encouraged the publication of scholarly editions of music and contemporary music. He said that the honour recognised his work with musicians, including helping young musicians at the start of their careers. Although he retired from his job as Chief Executive of the Associated Board of the Royal Schools of Music in December 2014, he is still much involved in music. He is a trustee of the London Youth Choir, which works with young people across the city, including Enfield. "You just see them blossom as people," Leslie added. "We take children as young as 7. They learn about music and they learn how to read about music." He is delighted to be involved with the choir, which offers bursaries for children who are unable to afford the fee to join. Among his other interests, he is chairman of the Association of British Choral Directors and has been involved in celebrating Latvian music in the UK. He is also a freeman of the Musicians' Company and of the City of London.
An avenue of trees which fell victim to Dutch elm disease in the 1970s is set to be replaced. Enfield Council has given the green light for tree surgeons to get to work in Broomfield Park in Palmer's Green, more than 40 years after the original ash and elm trees died in 1971. However, in a letter sent to residents and posted on the Bows and Bounds Connect web forum, the Council's senior arboricultural officer, Andy Robinson, explained that the new trees would not be elms, as the threat from Dutch elm disease is still present across the UK. Pardon me. Instead, 19 lime trees, planted as part of an attempt to replace the leafy avenue 35 years ago, will be left in place, with 50 new trees being planted in 4 rows following the original lines. 5 sickly trees will be cut down, and 6 lime stumps will be pulled out as part of the project. Lakes Estate Residents Association Chairman and Broomfield House Trust member Colin Younger said, "As a member of the Trust, I have a vested interest, and we're very pleased that this project is set to go ahead, as it's part of the plans for the restoration of the historic house. It's been a long-term plan for the Council to plant new trees, and it's an asset that everyone will be able to enjoy. It will really improve the park." Sorry, I'm getting going again. Dutch elm and another disease, known to have taken root in nurseries in Cambridgeshire, affect the vessels in an infected tree, meaning it can no longer absorb water and dies rapidly. Dutch elm disease is originally thought to have come from Asia, but it was accidentally brought to the UK in 1927 in a batch of infected timber.
People who live and work in Enfield are being urged to have their say on where the axe will fall when the London Fire Brigade makes its next round of cuts. London Mayor Boris Johnson has ordered the brigade to find another £6.4 million in savings in the next financial year. One option for public consultation involves taking 13 engines out of service permanently, despite response times increasing, following the closure of 10 fire stations and the removal of 14 fire engines in 2013. 10 Enfield wards recorded an increase in response times in the 12 months up to last April. Some of the savings made will go back into hiring more frontline staff to crew the brigade's remaining vehicles. The 13 engines were taken out of service temporarily in London as the threat of strike action by the fire brigade's union loomed. The brigade has a statutory obligation to provide emergency cover if its firefighters go on strike, but the union has settled its differences with the government, and a second option would be to bring the 13 engines back into use while making the savings by cutting back office staff and services. Enfield and Haringey London Assembly member Joanne McCartney said, "With our fire services facing uncertain times and response times already rising in Enfield and Haringey, It's important that local people have their say over the future of London's fire service. With frontline services at stake, it's hugely important that local people are given the opportunity to make their views known.
An MP is lobbying Parliament to demand action on preventing homelessness and rough sleeping. David Burrows, the Conservative MP for Enfield Southgate, tabled a debate in the House of Commons last week, saying that the plight of homelessness should not be tolerated in 2016 Britain. Addressing the Leader of the House, Chris Grayling, about scheduling a debate on the issue, he said, "I was disturbed last night when I visited a winter night shelter hosted by St Andrew's Church in Southgate. I spoke to Arthur, who told me that if it was not for that night shelter, he would be travelling round on the night buses because he's not young or vulnerable enough to get housing." Over the course of the coming months, Mr Burrows has said he'll be visiting shelters based in churches in the constituency where rough sleepers can be accommodated for a night to avoid the worst of the winter weather. The MP has been a supporter of the winter night shelter scheme since 2013, when he helped set it up. The scheme operates across churches where each night volunteers provide a hot meal and shelter for homeless men and women. Mr Burrows has also taken part in sleep-outs to raise awareness about the reality of sleeping rough. Responding to his fellow Tory, Mr Grayling said, "I commend my honourable friend, who's typical of many people in the House who do unsung and unseen work in the community, visiting shelters, spending nights out with the homeless on the streets, and in other situations. I commend him on what he is doing and on bringing the issue to the House. The best solution to homelessness is more homes, and that is the incentive for what this government is doing, but I will ensure that the relevant ministers engage with my honourable friend to discuss what he has learned and to try and ensure that we do what we can to end the blight of homelessness."
Edmonton MP Kate Osamore has vowed to fight for women being held at an immigration detention centre. She led a debate last week on the state of healthcare provided to women waiting to learn if they face deportation at Yarlswood Immigration Removal Centre in Bedfordshire. The centre came under fire from HM Inspectorate of Prisons in August, following a snap inspection in April. Pressure group Women for Refugee Women and the Royal College of Psychiatrists have both criticised medical care at Yarlswood. Medical Justice, a small UK charity which specialises in giving asylum seekers the chance to be examined by independent doctors, was told that access to patients at Yarlswood would be restricted. Ms Osamore used the debate at Westminster Hall to highlight the need for more staff and extra counselling. She also called on the government to abide by detention centre rules, which state that no one who has been tortured or whose health is likely to suffer if they are held should be detained. She said, "The situation has worsened since 2014. All detainees must have all the same services as the general public. Access to healthcare is a human right. There are also huge concerns about staffing levels. They are too low, and this has direct links to healthcare." Following the debate, she added, "I wanted to lead this debate after visiting Yarlswood and meeting women who told me the worst thing about the centre was healthcare. We are the only country in the EU who do not have a time limit on detention. This is appalling. Studies show detention has a lasting, damaging effect on the mental health of detainees, and the government needs to do more to address this." John Shaw, Managing Director for G4S Public Services, which manages healthcare at Yarlswood, said, "Recent reports into Yarlswood recognise a number of the challenges which we inherited when we took over delivering the healthcare service. We have been reconfiguring the service to recognise a growing number of more complex medical needs. To better meet the needs of detainees, we have worked with NHS England to change our contract so that together we can ensure we are providing the right services. We have prioritised providing primary care. There are now more GP hours delivered at the centre, and no detainee waits more than 3 days for a non-emergency appointment. We were appointed on the strength of our record in detention settings. We are committed to working with the NHS to raise the standard of service at Yarl's Wood and improve results for those who require medical care.
I don't think we've actually got a cutting because I don't think it's made the printed version of the newspapers, but I noticed on the website today that Kate Osnamore has been appointed to Jeremy Corbyn's cabinet as a junior minister. I think it's for women and equality. Okay, an orchard will hold a ceremony to bless its fruit trees. The Orchard Wassail is being held at 40 Hall Farms Orchards this Sunday. The ceremony will begin at 2 p.m. and it's recommended that people bring musical instruments to play or pots and pans to bang to ward off the evil spirits. Wassailing is an ancient social ceremony that has taken place in the southern counties of England for over 1,000 years. It's an orchard tradition intended to thank the trees for the fruit they produce and to wake them up for the coming year. The wassail drink is normally made with cider or apple juice, and everyone joins in with a wassail song. Toast is dipped in the juice and hung on the trees as a blessing. The event is free, with a suggested £2 donation.
Enfield Council needs to make 50 million in cuts to make ends meet over the next 5 years. The authority is asking people to give their opinion on which services they want to save. This year it has to make £17 million worth of cuts. Since 2010, it's had to make £118 million in savings, which has put increased pressure on street cleaning and adult social care. Councillors now admit tough decisions will have to be made when setting this year's budget. Joan Ryan, MP for Enfield North, blamed the government for cutting the amount of money local councils are given. She said, "Why should the government make life easier for millionaires, but yet take so much money from people who need it the most?" Last year, Enfield said it predicted an overspend in the financial budget of 2015-16 by a total of £2.7 million. However, this will be addressed before the end of the financial year. The closing date for responses to the budget consultation is Friday, January the 29th.
England's most senior nurse visited the borough to see how those with disabilities live independently and to meet a woman who has found a new lease of life after spending years in hospitals. Jane Cummings, Chief Nursing Officer for England, visited Enfield's Integrated Learning Disabilities Service, which aims to reduce time spent in hospital for people with mental health issues and promote independent living. She met 46-year-old Cindy Fox, who was born in Enfield but has lived outside the borough for 25 years in hospitals and institutions as far away as Colchester, due to mild learning disabilities and a personality disorder. She moved into her own home in Enfield 16 months ago and has been learning to live independently since. Miss Cummings said, "Cindy was very welcoming and keen to show us her home. It's lovely to see that someone who's been in hospital for so long is able to live like this. This is challenging the old ways of caring. It shows that it is possible for disabled people to live in their own home. She does get support from nurses who let her live her life." There might be times when Cindy needs additional help, and at Enfield they have the skills and expertise. There is person-centred care here and a real drive to keep people out of hospital. This is really good practice and not the kind of thing you see all the time elsewhere. Miss Fox is cared for by a rota of 4 dedicated nurses, supported by care managers at Enfield Council. She is able to leave the house alone to visit the shops and has control of her own money, including paying the rent. The idea of moving a housemate into Cindy's home near Enfield Town is also in the planning stages. Nurse Charlotte Wilson said, "I've looked after Cindy for 16 months and seen a total turnaround."
A council chief is adamant that the response to the Cycle Enfield consultation for Enfield Town and Southbury Road has been fantastic, despite reports that an overwhelming number of residents are opposed to the scheme. Daniel Anderson, Cabinet Member for Environment, batted away rumours that the consultation into the two sections of the Mini Holland scheme will return negative responses, as has been suggested by some residents and campaigners opposed to the scheme. There is no substance to these rumours and reports, he said. Our officers are still working their way through the responses. The consultation only closed in December, just before Christmas. It takes about 5 or 6 weeks from the closing of a consultation to report stage. What I can say is that there has been a fantastic feedback from our residents. There were 2 options included in the Enfield Town consultation that closed on December the 18th. One would see a cycle lane in the middle of Church Street, with both east and westbound buses passing on each side. The second option would see cyclists separated from east-moving buses by a landscaped border. Both options would see two-way traffic in Cecil Road. The Southbury Road proposals include a string of bus stop borders, which opponents to the scheme argue pose a danger to passengers, as they would be getting off into a bike lane. The plan would also see the end to on-street parking from parts of Southbury Road. Nick Dines, a Conservative councillor for Chase Ward, who lives just off Southbury Road, told the Advertiser, "I'm not surprised that the apparent reaction to the Southbury Road scheme has been so negative. The road is simply not suitable for cycle lanes to be created, as any Enfield resident who uses the road or lives near to it could have told the council if they had been asked at the outset of this ridiculous process the council has already spent millions of pounds on. The Southbury Road element really encapsulates to me the flaw behind Cycle Enfield. Of course people want safer cycling conditions, but instead of genuine consultation with people who live in our borough, the council has arrogantly tried to force through a plan that will cause traffic chaos on a road simply not wide enough for cycle lanes. It will also severely impact residents' parking, not just on Southbury Road, but also in the roads that lead off it. But no one at the council seems to care about that."
The unseasonably mild weather, which has just ended today, I might say, has coaxed spring flowers in the borough into an early bloom. Snowdrops, which usually start peeking through the frosty earth in January, are already in full flower in the grounds of Middleton House in Bull's Cross, Enfield. In another sign of unpredictable climes, daffodils have burst through the ground and have been spotted nodding in the breeze alongside the snowdrops. The early floral display is good news for galantophiles, that's snowdrop lovers, who will be flocking to Middleton House on Saturday, January the 23rd, for a chance to scoop up a rare snowdrop bulb or two. A decade ago, gardener Brian Hewitt discovered a new breed of snowdrop, one plant of which was sold at the sale last year for £100. And on that note, we come to the end of side 1. So please stop your machine, take out the cassette, turn it over, and start side 2.